was recently revealed that this show cost over $200 million to make. Where is all that money? They should investigate the books on this show. I mean, apparently some of it went to reshoots, but that didn't make the budget over $200 million. And it's just shocking because this week's episode in particular often looked like a fan film. I was like, aren't you embarrassed, Kevin Feige, to put this out into the world? Wow. And why do the episodes keep getting... that was harsh, but I feel it was true. All right, so anyway, why do the episodes keep getting shorter? I shocked myself with that one. With my comments. So why do the episodes keep getting shorter? One of the few good things about Secret Invasion when it started was that the episodes were at least close to an hour. And we're slipping down to the 30-minute mark? Now, that's not to say there weren't a few redeeming qualities this week. That's how they, although I don't know how many people are still watching Secret Invasion. But for those of us who are hardcore, they always have like a little something that you're like, well, I guess it wasn't a total waste of my time. And there's only one episode left, by the way. This played like episode 4 to me, like the 4th episode or 3rd episode, not second to last. But the character who really stood out to me the most this week was Olivia Colman's Sonya Falsworth, doing everything that Fury should be doing, which is namely kicking Skrull butt with a smile on her face. I have no idea how she's able to defeat Skrulls so easily, though. No wonder they want to become super, because they seem no more powerful than ordinary humans, despite being shapeshifters and supposedly having super strength. I mean, to take on 2 Skrulls with just herself and like that little dude who was her ace in the hole, that didn't make any sense to me. I was like, you Skrulls aren't even trying. But Coleman's lines made the scenes easier to swallow. I think my favorite was when the fake Daltons asked who she was, and she said the more important question was, who would you like me to be? Your bestie or not your bestie? I feel she could have presented better options. I thought that was a better setup than the payoff, but I still liked it. She also handled and outed her Skrull superior far better than Fury did Skrull Rhodey at the hospital. Why didn't he just shoot Skrull Rhodey? I was like, shoot that dude. Is Rhodey's security detail Skrulls as well? Rhodey was speaking pretty freely in front of them. I was like, if they're not Skrulls, they are bad at their job. But if Fury was already a wanted man with the Maria Hill footage out there, so why not at least take Skrull Rhodey out with him? Like take the ship down with you. Sure, another Skrull could just impersonate Rhodey, but that Skrull would have to go wherever Rhodey is being stored, which we don't know yet. Is Rhodey with the other? there was one shot from the trailers, which was a different kind of cold storage, which we haven't seen yet. So maybe that's where Rhodey is. But anyway, that new Skrull would have to go to wherever Rhodey was and get his memories to continue to impersonate him. So it would at least slow the plan down. A new Skrull could maybe just still assassinate the president. Although, the president's in danger. Why would Fury leave? He's really taking a lot on faith that the president heard his whispers. And I think he did, though. I think the president did hear the whispers because he was like, yes, I saw that there were Skrulls. Was he talking about the news? Because he was unconscious at the actual battlefield. But the president does seem a little hesitant around Skrull Rhodey. Or maybe that's because Skrull Rhodey was drunk the last time they spoke. Or maybe it's because where the heck is everybody? I have never seen a president so devoid of an entourage. Because I think that might be another reason that the president is nervous. He's not even at a top secret hospital. That seems to be a regular hospital. Sure, it's a Russian hospital, which might be making him nervous as well. And also, why aren't there any regular people at the hospital? Afterwards, maybe they would clear the area. But when Fury first brought him in, I didn't see any other patients or nurses or doctors or even staff. It made absolutely no sense. And wouldn't the Russian government send local law enforcement and troops? Because they don't want to have a World War III either. They're like, if anything happens to the president from America, we're really going to have a problem. So the real answer, of course, is that even with $200+ million, this show can't afford the extras to populate a hospital scene. They can't even afford multiple prop vials. Isn't this supposed to be the DNA of every superhero affiliated with the Avengers? And it all fits in one bottle? If not, at least explain it to me. So yes, we discover that the harvest is actually superhero DNA from everyone who participated in the big final battle in Avengers Endgame, because even Carol Danvers, and that's the battle she participated in. I I'm not quite sure how they figured out whose DNA was who, but they did. Because Fury used Skrulls to harvest the DNA after the battle, and it just so happens that Gravik was one of those Skrulls. Why did we get to see that? Is either the opening of this show or a flashback in this episode. That would have been amazing to see. And it's a battlefield that's no longer in use. They could have done that, on the cheap to a degree. I mean, they had $200 million. And why wasn't the Vulture a part of this, right? That's this whole thing, scavenging battlefields. Why didn't he think of DNA? That just seems like a real missed opportunity. And then why didn't Gravik think of keeping some of the DNA for himself? Right? I mean, he's supposed to be a smart guy. He should have been like, yoink, I'm taking some of this home, like paper clips. But he didn't. And now Fury has hidden the DNA, which Gravik desperately wants to add to his super Skrull cocktail. I wish they would talk more about super soldiers and super Skrulls and the parallel there. I mean, there are lots of parallels here that aren't being acknowledged and would make the show stronger. Also, if Skrulls can't get the stored DNA, why not just go directly to the source, to the Avengers themselves, who are still walking around and get it? I mean, these Skrulls are, after all, shape-shifting, super strong, trained spies. And Ant-Man is just waltzing around San Francisco doing interior monologues. I mean, just go pretend to be somebody who works at Baskin-Robbins, and there you go. But I'll tell you why, because the show can't afford it. Sonya even point blank asks Fury yet again, for the second time he's been asked on this show, why haven't you called any Avengers? And this time Fury says, because it's personal, and I can't keep relying on them. And, if this was going better, maybe I would say, you have a point, Fury. But considering it's such a disaster, it's just, again, is just an excuse for not being able to afford them. Speaking of controversial moves by Fury, the harvest is some real Batman-level betrayal, and in fact, it's a riff on an actual Batman storyline from the comics, where he developed ways to take down all the members of the Justice League just in case. But then Ra's al Ghul and their enemies stole those plans and used them to take down the Justice League. And Batman was like, so he famously was like, I'm the one who did this to you. And they were like, what? We're going to talk about this after we fix this. And I imagine that's how the Avengers are going to feel if they ever do find out about the harvest. But luckily for Fury, the show can't afford them, so he's never going to have to face the consequences of his actions. But it's an unnecessary wrinkle that was never in the comic book storyline. But if the Avengers were actually in this version of Secret Invasion, I might be down for this. What does Fury even want with the DNA, by the way? Did he always intend for the Skrulls maybe to incorporate it? Was he going to grow his own Avengers or make some in a lab? Is that where the Daltons came from? The scientist couple? I wish that we were getting a little bit more backstory on this. I continue to feel that they maybe really had something here in the MCU with the public and secret halves of Fury's life colliding, the Avengers and the Skrulls, and maybe talking amongst themselves, right? And taking Fury out of the equation. As I said, which Avenger would you approach? I would approach Natasha. But they only have half the story here, and no Natasha. On that note, we did get an adjacent to the Avengers cameo, and that's Natasha's contact from her movie, Rick Mason, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent you might recall, who now works off the grid, supplying spy types with the kind of support they need when they decide to go off the grid. In fact, Fury even uses the Widow's Veil to get past airport security. And for a minute there, I thought we were getting a variation on White Chicks, right? That dude was a good Fury stand-in physically. For a moment, I almost thought it was a makeup job, but instead it was this crazy tech. Remember, Natasha used that herself in Winter Soldier. It was also used on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Sharon Carter recently used it on Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's definitely ironic that Fury can kind of shapeshift too, at least his face. And one has to wonder why that wasn't brought up earlier on the show. I mean, like even some jokes about how he was able to level the playing field, and he's like, I want to get in on this shapeshifting action too. And why wasn't Natasha brought up when he was talking to Rick Mason? They couldn't even give Natasha a little nod? Or that Skrulls like the cold. I thought that was a very interesting detail, and they could have done a lot with that. Even a joke about how Priscilla, Mrs. Fury, likes to keep the air conditioning on full blast in the house. I was moved by Priscilla's story about why she picked her house. Although, damn, why does everything have to be about her nailing down Fury, right? Have some of your own interests. I mean, like the house, pick the house that you like, because clearly you're going to be there for most of the time by yourself because Fury is impossible to nail down. And then she was like, I like to watch him read for hours. And you're like, you got a problem, Priscilla. But then her nice house got completely shot up by some very incompetent Skrulls. I'd have preferred her to say she wanted to make her last stand there because she'd home alone her house up, right? She's like, I home alone Skyfall this place up. We're going to take our last stand here. But alas, all we got were 2 backpacks. And also her house, as I said, got completely destroyed. She was like, the whole reason I want to be here is to preserve it. And I was like, well, then wouldn't you want to get as far away from this house as possible? Or at least go outside. But no wonder Gravik is so upset. As I said, that Skrull assassination squad, like, they didn't even graze either one of them. I'm like, you didn't even get a body shot? His army of Skrulls can't seem to do anything right, and they even turn on him. And that fight, by the way, gives us the closest we've seen yet to proper Super Skrull action. I was like, oh, there they are. That looks like a Super Skrull. But yes, Gravik made the mistake of losing his temper and telling his followers that none of them actually matter and they're all just cannon fodder. Although I feel he was telegraphing that for a while now. But he finally said it, and he means it, because he's threatening to get Skrull Rhodey to get the United States to blow up New Skrullos with all the innocent Skrulls in it, as well as all the humans that are in cold storage who are currently being impersonated, if Fury doesn't give him the harvest. And he says, hey, Fury, when you show up to do the handoff, make sure you take some radiation pills, because we have a real radiation problem here, because we're on an abandoned radiation power plant. But what about all the humans in cold storage then? Are they all being slowly poisoned? Fury should be like, I don't want them back. They're all walking dead anyway. I'm curious about that. They don't seem to be in a lead-proof bunker. Finally, it would seem Talos really is dead. A Viking funeral is pretty final. I was like, could you maybe roll him into the machine? Maybe he's not dead enough. Maybe it'll work to super scroll him. And they're like, nope, we lit him on fire. And I'm like, all right. And what a shame. What a loss. What a waste. It's as bad as Maria Hill, quite frankly. Does this mean Emilia Clarke will stick around as not only the new good Skrull and liaison to the humans, but also one of the few, I think only 2 Super Skrulls in existence? Does Gravik make it out of the show alive? Will she be the only Super Skrull? I don't know how those Skrulls, by the way, intended to kill him. They were like, let's just punch him. And I'm like, did you not see that he has the extremist upgrade? You're going to have to do better than that. No one, they are incompetent though, so maybe that's why he wasn't too worried. He was like, go ahead and turn on me. You're all idiots. It was sad to see Talos on the news moments before he died though. I was like, still hurts. Gravik's team must have been the one to leak that footage, by the way, because I believe if you keep rolling, it also shows that very soldier shapeshift into Gravik and kill the clearly injured Skrull, which I think would have led the humans, when they saw that on the news, to see the situation is actually a lot more complex, and you have Skrulls versus Skrulls. Fury should consider wearing a body cam, by the way, so he has his own competing footage to play out this PR war. But instead, Fury goes back to his classic look. That was such a cheap set, by the way. You could practically feel somebody behind the camera, like moving down the thing, being like, beep, beep, boop, 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 beep, beep, boop. And you're like, you can't afford this? All right, so he goes back to his classic look, but keeps the skull cap. He's like, I'm going to keep the skull cap. I'm going to add a little detail. It's nice to see him go back to his classic look from the Avengers, but I, in fact, would have preferred he get a whole new look, an upgrade, to really stand out and to show that he was going to go on. Is this the end of Fury, right? Is he going to retire? I don't know. And also, if he had gotten more firepower, I'd be like, those 2 guns are trademarked, but I think you need a little bit more. The nicest thing he said this episode was how his mother, his single mother, and his wife had shaped him. And it was nice not only to see another shout out to his mom, would have liked to have seen her in a flashback maybe, but it was nice to hear that he did really truly love and care about Vara/Priscilla, because she hasn't been so sure. And quite frankly, I haven't either. And I was like, oh, he does seem to like her. Although maybe this just sounds good to Sonya. He's like, let's tell this lady what I think she'd like to hear. Although he didn't mourn for Talos at all this episode. Dude was in the back of a truck, on the floor of the truck. I felt bad. Weren't they like besties? Speaking of besties. So 1 episode left, right? Let's see what this show considers a big finale. They actually have a lot to tie up. So here's hoping the final episode is closer to an hour. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.